Areas of wilderness are parts of the world that have been left untouched by modern man. They are islands of nature in a world changed by humanity. Some places have survived in their natural state because they're just too harsh to support even small populations. Others survive because people wanted to preserve regions of natural beauty. In the middle of the 18th century, the world's population was less than 800 million. Today, it is approaching 7 billion people, all needing a share of the Earth's resources. Some areas of outstanding cultural or natural importance to the world are protected as World Heritage Sites. Shiratoko Peninsula, at the northeastern end of the Japanese island of Hokkaido, was recently listed because it is an outstanding example of the interaction of marine and terrestrial ecosystems. The site is globally important for threatened seabirds and migratory birds. The forests of the park are mixed temperate and subalpine, and they are accessible only by boat or on foot. They are home to Japan's largest brown bear population. High in the western Himalayas, India's Valley of Flowers National Park is also protected as a World Heritage Site. The park is known for its meadows of alpine flowers. It encompasses a unique transition zone between the mountain ranges of the Zanskar and Great Himalaya. It adjoins the Nandi Devi National Park, which was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 1988. In Norway, Geirangerfjord and Njordfjord are among the world's longest and deepest fjords. Their crystalline rock walls rise up to 1,400 metres from the Norwegian Sea and extend to 500 metres below sea level. The archipelago of St Kilda, in Scotland's Outer Hebrides, was initially inscribed on the World Heritage List for its outstanding natural features and wildlife in 1986. Recently, the site's inscription was extended to cover its cultural value. Populated until the 1930s, the islands bear evidence of more than 2,000 years of human occupation. They include stone structures dating back to the Bronze Age and the remains of a subsistence economy. Vredefort Dome, southwest of Johannesburg, is a representative part of a larger meteorite impact structure, or astrobleem. Dating back 2,000 million years, it is the oldest and largest astrobleem on Earth. The desert is not a place you'd expect to find whales, but the Wadi al-Hitan Valley in the western desert of Egypt contains fossil remains of the earliest known suborder of whales, the Archaeoceti. These fossils represent one of the major stories of evolution, the emergence of the whale as an ocean-going mammal. The Sea of Cortez and its islands in the Gulf of California in northeastern Mexico have been called a natural laboratory. Almost all major oceanographic processes occurring in the planet's oceans are present in this area. Coiba National Park, off the southwest coast of Panama, protects Coiba Island, 38 smaller islands, and the surrounding marine areas within the Gulf of Chiriquí. It provides a key ecological link to the tropical eastern Pacific for the transit and survival of pelagic fish and marine mammals. The park provides shelter for 891 different fish species and 2/5 of the world's marine cetaceans, while its tropical jungles are home to howler monkeys, scarlet macaws, and crested eagles. The last great wilderness is Antarctica, the frozen continent. Almost all of Antarctica is covered by ice, with an average thickness of 1.5 kilometres. It belongs to no country. Though some nations have laid claim to parts of the continent, these are not generally recognised by other countries. There is an international treaty regulating activity in Antarctica, but the continent's frigid climate is what really protects it from exploitation. The Madrid Protocol bans all mining activities in Antarctica, designating the continent as a natural reserve devoted to peace and science. Many countries maintain scientific bases in the Antarctic. The poles are showing signs of climate change. Large parts of the Ross Ice Shelf appear to be cracking, and large icebergs are breaking off, so Antarctica provides a natural laboratory for climatologists. A British survey team has set up a temporary base on the ice sheet to extract core samples from the ice. Small bubbles trapped within the ice have preserved a record of the composition of the Earth's atmosphere. Antarctica supports a range of specially adapted animals that all rely on the rich Southern Ocean for food. These macaroni penguins mostly eat krill, a small marine crustacean that is a staple for so many of the marine species that migrate to the southern waters during the summer months. But over the past few years, krill densities have been down, and marine biologists are not sure why. Melt rates at the poles seem to be increasing, and observations suggest the western ice sheet is thinning, though the larger eastern ice sheet may be thickening. Satellite observations suggest that since 1992, the western ice sheet has lost 31 cubic kilometres of ice, due largely to the fast-flowing Pine Island Glacier, which carries ice from the interior to the sea. The Pine Island Glacier is up to 2,500 metres thick and flows over bedrock which lies over 1.5 kilometres below sea level. Along with the Thwaites Glacier, the Pine Island Glacier is flowing at an accelerated rate. This breeding colony of Adelie penguins has roughly 500,000 birds, with each nest just out of pecking distance of those that surround it. Of the 17 species of penguin, only 4 nest in Antarctica, with a further 3 nesting on neighbouring islands. During the summer months, albatrosses nest around the margins of the southern continent. Because it is so cold, the Southern Ocean is able to hold high levels of dissolved oxygen, which is why it supports such an abundance of life. Penguin breeding pairs take turns to go to sea to feed. They are vulnerable to the seals, which wait below the rookeries for an easy meal. Further from the sea, on the pack ice, the emperor penguins form their breeding colonies. These are the largest penguins, and they are the only creature to spend the dark winter in Antarctica. They do not build nests. Instead, the male will cradle the one egg on its feet, while the female goes to sea. When the chick hatches at the end of winter, the female returns, and the male goes to feed for the first time in 2 months. Most creatures in the Antarctic wilderness are not afraid of human beings. The British Antarctic Survey is part of a 5-year Global Science in the Antarctic project. The aim is to understand the effects of climate change on sea levels and global weather systems. BAS has 18 separate studies underway, including research into the stability of the Antarctic ice sheets and the examination of ice cores to find out more about temperatures and carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere across vast timescales. Ice cores contain an accurate record of past climate. Deep core samples from the Russian Vostok base have yielded atmospheric information from as much as 720,000 years ago. Though the Antarctic is a very harsh place, it is also very fragile. The changes just becoming obvious here will have a planetary significance. East Africa's mountain gorillas, the world's largest and most powerful primates, live a fragile existence. Their habitat is under pressure from an insatiable demand for farmland and timber. Experts estimate that barely 700 survive in the wild. Found in just 2 areas on the war-ravaged borders of Uganda, Rwanda and the Congo, the gorilla's safest sanctuary is Uganda's 330 square kilometre Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, a mountain wilderness of steep hills, narrow valleys and thick forest. In 2002, to find out exactly how many gorillas live here, conservationists and gorilla trackers spent 6 weeks trying to count them. Even with 6 teams searching for them, the gorillas are hard to track down, so the zoologists had to find an accurate method to count them. Each night, they make new night nests by bending over leaves and branches. Because each gorilla makes its own nest, by counting the nests after the gorillas have moved on, the team was able to accurately count the gorillas in a group. In Uganda alone, there weren't enough experienced trackers to undertake the project, so colleagues from the neighbouring Virunga National Park came to help out. Gerard Murungezi, a Congolese tracker, said tracking gorillas in Bwindi was more difficult. Because the soft vegetation that the gorillas prefer to eat is less plentiful in this region, the animals have to range further each day. So as not to lose their bearings in the impenetrable forest, a GPS unit was used. Although beneath the dense forest canopy, it was often difficult to lock on to a strong enough signal to get an accurate reading.
So we found the trail somewhere here.
The team plotted their location and the position of the gorillas' nests on the map. Samples of hair and dung were collected for later analysis. In the laboratory, hormone levels from the samples can indicate any stress that the populations are under. Bwindi is visited regularly by tourists, providing valuable revenue for the Uganda Wildlife Authority, which manages the park. In March 1999, the park was struck by tragedy. Rwandan rebels killed 8 tourists and a ranger, bringing tourism to a temporary halt. Since then, security has been improved with regular army patrols, and the park warden is confident that tourists have nothing to fear. Despite rocky political relations between the neighbouring countries, when it came to gorilla conservation, the teams were more interested in learning from each other and getting on with work. 2 years later, for the first time in more than 15 years, the nearby Virunga National Park carried out a census of gorillas in its mountain forests. With an end to hostilities in the Congo, trackers were now able to follow gorillas across their full range, to monitor numbers and to keep poachers at bay. Since 1994, about 120 rangers have been killed in the line of duty, protecting the park from illegal poaching, land acquisition and the illicit production of charcoal. Researchers were able to see a recovery in the population of the apes across the Virunga volcano chain, connecting Uganda, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The endangered mountain gorillas had registered a 17% increase in numbers. However, park rangers were not sure if this population growth was due to the civil war keeping poachers out of the park. The return of peace to the area could be bad news for the mountain gorillas. In 1925, Virunga was established as Africa's first national park. In 1979, it was given World Heritage status. The Ruwenzori Mountains, which border the park, have 2 active volcanoes. Another protected wilderness area, Yellowstone National Park, has seen its local population of grizzly bears return from the brink of local extinction. Though the bears are no longer hunted, they are often killed by passing cars or trains. The bears once ranged across the south and western parts of North America, but these days their major concentrations are in Canada and Alaska. Habitat loss, alienation and fragmentation of their environment has meant their survival in the lower 48 states is limited to national parks, where they still have room to wander. Conservationists in the United States are trying to reintroduce the bears to areas where they have become locally extinct to recover lost biodiversity. This can affect the local ecology by rebalancing species, reducing vegetation that has been allowed to grow unchecked. The bear's digging and foraging redistributes the nutrients in the soil, bringing the ecosystem to an equilibrium it had when bears were there as a natural part of the scene. Some Americans were arguing that the bear's recovery could mean they became legitimate targets for hunters, but this idea has not been taken seriously. In the remote jungle wilderness of Sumatra, elephants are being harnessed in the war against poachers and illegal loggers in an attempt to save wild elephant herds from extinction. It's a unique patrol unit of 5 endangered Sumatran elephants and their handlers, trekking through some of the world's toughest terrain in the Gunung Lesser National Park in northern Sumatra. The park itself encompasses nearly 2.5 million hectares of tropical rainforest and is the only place on Earth where 4 of the world's most spectacular animals, the orangutan, rhinoceros, elephant and tiger, can be found living together. But the park and its rare animals are under threat. In recent years, human encroachment around the park boundaries has resulted in massive land clearing, illegal logging and poaching within the park itself. The population of Sumatran elephants has plummeted to less than 600, and researchers believe the orangutan could disappear completely within 10 years. Set up 2 years ago by the Indonesian government with assistance from the European Union, the Elephant Patrol has become an effective unit in fighting the illegal logging and the loss of natural elephant habitat. The national park authorities have become increasingly frustrated as efforts to prosecute the businessmen behind the logging have failed, but there has been success in reducing some of the logging within the park boundaries, and that's due to the work being done by the Elephant Patrol unit. When the Elephant Patrol started, illegal logging was happening right up to the Besatang River on the park's boundary. Within 2 years, this activity had almost completely stopped. A lot of that is due purely to the efforts of this unique Elephant Patrol unit. The tame elephants are doing their bit to protect the wild elephants. The collaboration between Indonesia and the European Union has been fruitful in protecting one of the world's great tropical rainforests. The area is perfect for patrol by elephants. Boats and vehicles cannot penetrate the densely forested region, and elephants mix well with the wild elephants native to the park. As well as transporting the rangers, the elephants are used to trample illegal loggers' huts and rip up illicit palm oil plantations. After long hours on patrol through the thick jungle, the elephants can look forward to a cool bath and a good scrub. Washing the elephants reinforces the bond between keeper and his animal, and the rangers spend a great deal of time at the end of the day grooming their beasts. In Australia, tracts of native forest have become fragmented, inhibiting the movement of animals that would once have ranged over a huge area. Stretching 80 metres high and up to 4 metres wide, these gigantic trees make up some of Australia's last remaining natural forests. Now, scientists have found they're soaking up 3 times more carbon than previously thought. A new plan aims to re-establish corridors between these isolated forests to assist the movement of wildlife and to help increase the country's ability to act as a carbon sink. According to the leading worldwide climate change body, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the average carbon stock in temperate forests is 217 tonnes of carbon per hectare. Scientists have calculated that the average amount of carbon stored in these unlogged natural eucalypt forests is about 640 tonnes per hectare. Half of Australia's forests have been cleared over the last 220 years. The Wilderness Society says that forests are crucial in enabling us to act on climate change. Carbon stocks in more than 50% of the remaining unprotected forests have been reduced by logging and other human activities. Environmental groups say protecting these areas is crucial if Australia is to soak up its excess greenhouse gases. Farmers are joining forces to help with the proposed plan for a conservation corridor stretching from the Snowy Mountains to the tropics. As part of a pilot program, 30 rural landholders are involved in the conservation project. Large-scale properties like this near the Snowy Mountains could be safeguarded under the new plan. The program hopes to bridge the gap between alpine national parks and the far south coast of New South Wales. Under the pilot program, known as Kosciuszko to the Coast, landowners will receive incentive payments for creating wildlife refuges and signing binding long-term conservation agreements attached to their properties. Lake Changara, in the far north of Chile, is one of the highest lakes in the world. It's 3,650 metres above sea level and dramatically situated near the enormous, dormant Parinacota volcano. But despite its remote location, Changara is not immune to the effects of the modern world. Scientists say global warming is drying the lake up, and in the future it could become nothing more than a dead salt plain, completely destroying the habitat that is currently home to over 130 bird species, as well as llamas, alpacas, pumas and foxes. The situation at Lake Changara is just one example of the effect of climate change, a worldwide problem which a recently released UK-commissioned report said could also lead to a worldwide economic slump. On current trends, average global temperatures will rise by 2 to 3 degrees within the next 50 years. This will not only dry up Lake Changara, but it will drastically affect the production of maize through the Andean countries. Estimates say yields would fall by approximately 15%. Rich nations will need to cut greenhouse gas emissions to between 60 and 80% of 1990 levels by 2050 in order to make any difference. High in the mountains of China's Yunnan province, the Mingyong Glacier is melting. It has been retreating by 50 to 70 metres a year, feeding ever more water into the Yangtze and New rivers. Chinese scientists have warned that rising temperatures on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau will decimate the nation's glaciers and trigger a number of other problems. The glaciers are fed by winter snows in the high mountains. Normally, this snow and ice would gradually melt during the year, feeding the great rivers. But now, the glaciers are melting faster than the snowfall can replenish them. Instead of snow, the region gets more rain, which flows away quickly, sometimes causing flash floods. Almost half of China's glaciers are on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau in the Himalayas, where the Yangtze, Yellow, Brahmaputra, Mekong and Salween rivers all originate. The rapid rate of glacier melting has meant more water runoff from the plateau, which also exacerbates soil erosion. The Qinghai Tibet Plateau makes up 1/4 of China's total area.